You think your home is your sanctuary? Think again. In 1974, Sarah moved into a quiet Kansas suburb, unaware a monster lived in her walls. The first week was peaceful. Then, Sarah found a Polaroid on her welcome mat. It was a photo of her front door, taken from the inside. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She checked every deadbolt. Every window was latched. But the photo was still damp with fresh chemical developer. She called the police. They scanned the house but found nothing. "Just a prank, kid," the officer said. He didn't see the attic hatch move. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a footstep. Every gust of wind sounded like a whispered name. At 3:00 a.m., she heard it, a rhythmic clicking coming from the corner of her bedroom. Click, whir, the sound of a camera. She lunged for the lamp, but the room was empty. Only the smell of ozone and old dust remained, and a new photo on her pillow. The photo showed her sleeping. The camera had been inches from her face. She wasn't alone. He was watching her breathe. Sarah fled to a motel across town. She locked the door and pushed a dresser against it. Finally, she felt safe, or so she thought. The next morning, she stepped into the shower. The steam filled the room. When she wiped the mirror, she saw a message written in the fog. The message said, "You look better in yellow." Sarah looked down. She was wearing her yellow dress. He had followed her here. She ran to the motel manager, screaming for help. But the manager was gone. The office was empty, the phone lines cut clean. On the desk sat a silver Polaroid camera. It was old, cracked, and vibrating. It began to spit out a photo automatically. Sarah watched the image develop. It was a photo of her standing in the office, right now, taken from the vent above her head. She realized then that he didn't want to kill her yet. He wanted to own her. He was documenting her fear like a collector. Sarah decided to fight. She drove to a hardware store and bought a heavy flashlight and a hunting knife. She was going back. She returned to the house. If he was in the walls, she would find him. She wouldn't be a victim anymore. She was the hunter. She started in the basement. The air was cold and smelled of wet earth. Her flashlight beam flickered, struggling against the gloom. In the corner, behind the furnace, she found a small door. It wasn't on the blueprints. It was a crawlspace leading deep into the foundation. She crawled inside. The space was tight, forcing her to move on her stomach. The walls were lined with insulation and photos. Thousands of photos. Other women. Women who had lived in this house before her, all of them sleeping, all of them unaware. Then she saw the dates. This had been happening for 20 years. The attic shadow was a ghost that never left. A soft scraping sound came from behind her. Something was moving in the crawlspace. Something fast. Something that didn't need a light. Sarah kicked backward and scrambled out of the hole. She slammed the panel shut and bolted it with a heavy pipe. The door rattled. A low, guttural growl vibrated through the wood. "Sarah," a voice whispered, "don't ruin the collection." She ran for the stairs, but the basement light exploded in a shower of sparks. Total darkness swallowed her whole. She used her flashlight as a club. She felt a hand grab her ankle. Cold, calloused fingers tightened around her skin. She swung the flashlight with all her might. Crack, the grip loosened. She didn't look back, she just climbed. She reached the kitchen and grabbed her car keys. But the back door was nailed shut from the outside. He had prepared. The front door was the same. She was trapped in her own home. The clicking sound started again. Click, whir. He was on the landing. A tall, gaunt figure wrapped in a heavy canvas coat. His face was hidden by a leather mask. He raised the camera. Flash, the light blinded her. "You're my favorite, Sarah. You fight so beautifully," he rasped. Sarah didn't beg. She threw her heavy flashlight at his head and bolted for the basement again. It was the only way out. She remembered a coal chute in the far wall. It was small, but she was smaller. She had to squeeze through or die. He was right behind her. She could hear his heavy boots on the stairs. Thump, 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 he was laughing. She pushed herself into the narrow metal tunnel. The rusted edges sliced her arms, but she didn't stop. She crawled toward the moonlight. A hand grabbed her foot and pulled. She kicked wildly, feeling her shoe come off. She lunged for the opening. She tumbled onto the damp grass and ran. She didn't look back until she reached the main road and flagged down a passing truck. The police raided the house an hour later. They found the photos. They found the IDs of 30 missing women, but they didn't find him. The crawlspace was empty. The silver camera was gone. All that remained was a single photo left on the kitchen counter. Sarah moved to California. She changed her name. She never lived in a house with an attic or a basement again. 10 years passed. Sarah almost forgot. She got married. She had a daughter. She felt the shadow had finally faded. On her daughter's 5th birthday, a package arrived. No return address. Just a plain brown box tied with twine. Inside was a yellow floral dress. It was small, exactly the size of her daughter, and it was brand new. Beneath the dress was a Polaroid. It showed her daughter playing in the park the day before. The angle was from the bushes. Sarah called the FBI. They put her in witness protection. They moved her to a secret location in the desert. She lived in a trailer with no windows. She kept a loaded gun under her pillow. She stopped looking at cameras. She grew old in that desert. Her hair turned gray, but her hazel eyes never lost their edge. She was always waiting. In 2004, the Kansas police contacted her. They had found a body in the old house. It was hidden behind a false wall. It was the killer. He had died decades ago, shortly after Sarah escaped. He had been trapped behind the wall he built. Sarah finally wept. The monster was dead. The shadow was gone. She could finally breathe. She could finally live. She decided to return to Kansas one last time. She wanted to stand in the house and prove it had no power over her. The house was a shell. The roof had caved in. The basement was flooded. It was just wood and rot. Sarah walked into the kitchen. She remembered the photo on the counter. She remembered the fear. She smiled. She had won. Then she heard it, a faint sound from the basement. Click, whir. Sarah froze. Her blood turned to ice. She walked to the stairs. "The killer is dead," she whispered to herself. "The police found the body. It's impossible." In the basement, a brand new silver camera sat on the floor. It was spitting out a photo. The flash lit up the room. She picked up the photo. It showed her standing in the kitchen just moments ago, but the killer was dead. She turned the photo over. On the back, in fresh ink, it said, "Collections never end. I have a son." The attic hatch above her head creaked open. A young man, wearing the same leather mask, looked down. "Smile, Sarah." Flash.